As a child, I grew up in a world that was under the spell of the Cold War, the division between East and West. Growing up in England during the 1970s, 1980s, I never really had a fear of the Soviet Union as such. It was just another superpower of the time and was basically something we really knew nothing about. And that fascinated us even more. Ironically, the people of the Soviet Union are not or were not unlike those of us in the West. They weren't monsters or aliens, they were just normal everyday folk who had generally laughed and cried like everybody else. Governments, both East and West, had their own agendas for whatever reasons. That doesn't mean the actual people were different, quite the opposite. When I was in the military, the Soviet Union fascinated me, and I studied it a fair bit, especially its history, not just the communist part. Eventually I ended up marrying a Russian who grew up under the communist flag, her father being a very high up Air Force officer. And she then introduced me to some of the finer things that were part of everyday life in the Soviet Union, especially its music and its movies. I have therefore decided to share what I think are 3 Soviet era movies that are truly brilliant and should be viewed for what they are, entertainment. And like me, you will soon realise that despite the Cold War and the government's best efforts to demonise, deep down we are all the same. Kicking my list off at number 3 is Kavказская, plenniца, or Kidnapping Caucasian style. This is a little comedy gem from 1967. The film itself follows the exploits of the character Shurik, a student of ethnography, or the study of cultures, who is travelling through the Caucasus to study the local people, their habits and their culture. Shurik is kind-hearted, but pretty much of a fool, and we basically follow his farcical exploits. The plot itself is pretty simple and straightforward, whereby a beautiful girl called Nina is visiting her uncle, who works for a local party boss, who Shurik kind of falls in love with, but so as the local party boss. The party boss himself wishes to marry Nina, but he's quite an old guy, and there's no way that she will ever agree to this. Shurik, in an attempt to find out about the local customs relating to toasts, however, ends up getting rather drunk, and he's arrested for disorderly conduct. The party boss and Nina's uncle then come up with the idea to convince Shurik that Nina has agreed to marry the party boss, but she's a very traditional girl and will only do so if she's actually kidnapped. What happens next is just farce upon farce, with Shurik botching the kidnapping, the party boss and the uncle hiring a team of professional kidnappers who are equally inept, and with Nina outwitting all of them. Kidnapping Caucasian style is truly a funny film, and despite the era in which it was made, it has actually stood the test of time rather well. Not only that, but you'd be hard put to tell that this was a film made under Soviet communism, because there's no actual ideology at play. Of course, there are numerous references that relate to the political situation of the time, but these are neither in your face or constant. The film is very family friendly, with not a single hint of anything sexual, and not a single profanity, not even mild, uttered. Like most of the Soviet movies of the time, there is also a couple of musical numbers, both of which are actually widely known and fondly appreciated in modern day Russia. In fact, the song about the bears has even been remixed by some of Russia's more up-to-date musicians. The other song, If I Were a Sultan, is about the custom in certain parts of the world of polygamy and pondering if one should have 3 wives or less, with the ending lyric, If I were a sultan, I would be single. A very comedic song, sung by one of Russia's most well-known clowns, Yuri Nikulin, who also stars in the movie as the clown. If you're therefore looking for a laid-back, funny, entertaining movie, and this is your first venture into the joys of Soviet-era movies, then Kidnapping Caucasian style is certainly the film I would recommend, and believe me, you'll be asking for even more Soviet-era movies once you've seen it. Next up, we have another little gem, Brilliantовая рука, or better known in English as the Diamond Arm. This is another comedic gem dating back to 1968, but it's not just a comedy, it's a thriller and a crime drama and a comedy all rolled up into one, and as such it appeals to a wider audience. The plot itself is pretty straightforward. We follow a chap called Semyon who has been granted the prize of going on a foreign cruise for outstanding work. There he unwittingly gets caught up in a smuggling operation by a man whom he befriends upon the ship. This man is to act as a courier of the jewels. The courier is meant to meet up with those who actually have the jewels in a foreign place that is never actually named. And those who have the jewels have no idea what the courier looks like, and vice versa. A set of pre-agreed code words and actions are being sorted out, but unknowingly, Semyon unintentionally manages to utter the very words and also do the very actions that the courier is meant to do. He is then whisked away by those who have the jewels, and he's given a plaster cast, which is then filled with the jewels. What ensues after this is just pure comedy gold. Semyon trying to get caught by customs himself so he can give himself up, the gang trying by various means to get the jewels away from Semyon, and even Semyon's wife thinking he's having an affair and being suspicious, and then amongst all of this, the police are somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to tell you how that all ends up because that would be a major plot spoiler. All I will say is that the film keeps the big reveal quite well, and when it comes, it does actually take you totally by surprise. The Diamond Arm is a family, fun, entertaining and well-filmed movie. The character developments are interesting and the comedy is well intended and truly funny. The main character Semyon, again played by Yuri Nikolin, who really does have a knack for playing these type of characters. His portrayal is incredibly hilarious and it's just so brilliantly acted. From the very beginning of the film, this film shows you what its true intention is all about: to make you laugh. And boy, there are some parts of this movie that will just have you rolling on the floor. I thoroughly recommend this film, especially if you need to put a smile upon your face. And last but by no means least is the 1975 film Ivnia судьбы, or The Irony of Fate, or Enjoy Your Bath. This is truly a classic. Not only is this movie still a staple for New Year's in today's Russia, much like James Bond or The Great Escape is for the UK, but this one is cutting edge in a lot of respects, most notably for the taking a massive swipe at the communist lifestyle. It's a romantic comedy. The Irony of Fate makes comedic use of the fact that during this period of the Soviet Union, housing was basically all made to the same design, including the very furnishings within. We follow a doctor called Zhenya, who is celebrating New Year's Eve at a banya with his friends, where they become increasingly more and more inebriated. One of the friends is due to fly back to Leningrad, so off they all trot in their very drunken state to the airport, where a mix-up ends up with Zhenya being on the plane instead of the person intended. Not realizing error due to his drunkenness, he grabs a taxi and he gives his address. The taxi duly drops him off and Zhenya makes his way home. But it's not his because he lives in Moscow. The apartment itself belongs to an attractive woman, Nadia, and she is horrified when she finds Zhenya, who is equally horrified when he is discovered, believing that Nadia is actually the intruder. Zhenya, in his drunken state, finds everything is the same, however, although eventually fun is made of the fact, once Zhenya of course sobers up, that Nadia managed to get certain furnishings in the Finnish style, which is a lot better than the stuff that Zhenya's got back in Moscow. What happens next is just pure, good old-fashioned farce, with Nadia trying to throw Zhenya out, Zhenya unable to come to the realization that it's not his home, Nadia's love interest, Hippolyte, getting understandably upset, and the whole thing just being so comically done. All this is set against the backdrop that everything in the Soviet Union is basically just a copy-paste. I'm not going to spoil the rest, but this is another movie that you can view on YouTube, and if you really want to see a film that's going to make you giggle, put a smile on your face, and just be some good old family fun, then this is the one for you. One thing I'd like to say though is how on earth they managed to get away with having such a huge dig at the Soviet authorities is beyond me. But the fact that this film has managed to stand the test of time and is still the movie to watch on New Year's Eve in Russia says a lot. It's good, clean, honest fun, and we can all revel in the fact that under similar circumstances, we could also make the same mistakes with the same comedic outcome. It's a truly marvellous film that warms the heart and brings a big smile to your face. The acting is superb, and I am not surprised this is one of the most beloved movies in Russia because it's just so funny, poignant, and totally lovely to boot. Anyway, that has been my top 3 Soviet era movies that I would recommend you watch. By all means, comment and everything below, and let me know your thoughts on this. Seriously, I mean, venturing into the realm of Soviet era movies is never a bad thing. It will bring a smile on your face. Until the next time, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon.